Have you ever felt like life is just too much? Like no matter how hard you try, the weight of the world keeps pressing down on you? Maybe you're dealing with struggles that no one knows about, silent battles that drain your strength. What if I told you that Psalm 121 holds the secret to unshakable strength? The kind of strength that doesn't waver no matter what life throws at you. Psalm 121 is more than just a beautiful passage. It's a direct promise from God. A promise that no matter how dark things get, no matter how exhausted you feel, you are never alone. And in the next few minutes, we're going to break it down and uncover exactly how this psalm can transform the way you face challenges. By the end of this, you'll walk away with a renewed sense of confidence, peace, and strength. Because once you truly understand what this passage means, fear loses its grip, anxiety fades, and you realize that your help doesn't come from people, circumstances, or even your own strength. Your help comes from the Lord. Let's start with the very first words. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? That's a question so many of us ask, whether we say it out loud or not. When trouble comes, we start looking for something, anything to make us feel safe. We look to our jobs for financial security, to people for validation, to our own abilities for control. But here's the problem. Those things can fail us. Money runs out. People disappoint us. Our own strength, it has limits. But what if I told you that the key to unshakable strength isn't found in anything external? That's what Psalm 121 reveals. The very next verse answers the question, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Think about that. The maker of heaven and earth. The one who created the universe, the stars, the mountains, the oceans. He is the one offering to be your help. Not just your temporary solution, not just your backup plan, but your help in every situation. Let that sink in for a moment. Because if we truly believed that our help comes from the Lord, how differently would we live? We wouldn't be consumed by worry. We wouldn't feel powerless when life gets tough. We wouldn't be shaken by the unexpected. Instead, we would stand firm, knowing that the same God who holds the universe together is holding us. And here's where it gets even more powerful. The next verses say, He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. This means that God's protection over you is constant. He's not like humans who get tired or distracted. He's not like friends who are there for you one moment and unavailable the next. He never stops watching over you. Never. That alone should bring peace to your heart. Because if God is watching over you, then what do you really have to fear? Think about the things that have been weighing you down lately. The stress, the uncertainty, the burdens. Now imagine what would happen if you fully trusted that God is actively watching over your life, making sure that your foot does not slip. You would walk differently. You would think differently. You would live differently. Psalm 121 isn't just a nice passage to read. It's a mindset shift. It's a call to stop relying on shaky foundations and to start trusting in the one foundation that never crumbles. The foundation of God's power, God's protection, and God's presence. And we're just getting started. Because in the next part, we're going to dive even deeper into the next verses and uncover what it really means when God says He is your keeper. What does that protection actually look like in real life? How can you be sure that God is truly watching over you? Stay with me, because what's coming next will change the way you see your struggles forever. So, we've established that God is our help, the one who never sleeps, the one who ensures our feet don't slip. But let's be honest, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes we face storms so strong that we wonder, God, where are you? If He's truly watching over us, why do we still go through hardships? Why do we still feel weak? That's exactly what we're going to unpack right now. Because Psalm 121 doesn't just promise God's protection. It explains how that protection works. And once you understand this, it will change the way you handle every struggle in your life. Let's look at the next verses. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. Now, at first glance, this might sound poetic, but it's actually revealing something deep. In ancient times, the sun was a real danger. It wasn't just about getting a sunburn. Travelers in the scorching heat could suffer heat stroke, dehydration, or even death. The moon, on the other hand, was often associated with emotional distress, anxiety, and fear. So when God says He is your shade, He's telling you something powerful. He will protect you from what drains your strength, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. He covers you in the heat of life's pressures. He shields you from the exhaustion of carrying burdens too heavy for you. He is your refuge when the weight of the world becomes too much. But here's what we need to understand. God's protection doesn't always mean the absence of struggle. It means the presence of His sustaining power through the struggle. This is where so many people get it wrong. They think, if God is protecting me, I shouldn't be facing this battle. But the truth is, God's protection often looks like giving you the strength to endure, the wisdom to navigate, and the peace that surpasses understanding in the middle of the storm. Think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God didn't keep them from being thrown into the fiery furnace, but He was with them in the fire. He didn't stop Daniel from being thrown into the lion's den, but He shut the mouths of the lions. That's the kind of protection Psalm 121 is talking about. And if you look back on your own life, you'll probably see it too. Maybe there were moments when you thought you wouldn't make it, but somehow you did. Maybe you faced challenges that should have broken you, but here you are, stronger, wiser, still standing. That's God's protection in action. It doesn't always remove the storm, but it ensures that the storm doesn't destroy you. Now let's go even deeper. The next verse says, "The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life." At this point, some might ask, but what about pain? What about suffering? This is where we need to understand God's perspective versus ours. When the Bible says God will keep us from all harm, it doesn't mean we will never face difficulties. It means that no matter what happens, nothing can ultimately harm us in a way that separates us from God's plan and His love. Even in our worst moments, even in the pain, God is still working all things for our good. That's why Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." The hardships you face, they're not wasted. The struggles you endure, they're shaping you into someone stronger, someone who relies fully on God. So the question is, are you willing to trust His protection even when you don't understand it? Are you willing to believe that God is watching over your life even when things don't go the way you planned? Because that's what true, unshakable strength looks like. It's not just standing tall when things are easy. It's standing firm when life is hard, knowing that you are never alone. Stay with me, because what comes next will challenge you to walk in a new level of faith. We've seen how Psalm 121 is a promise of God's protection, not as an escape from life's struggles, but as a source of strength through them. We've talked about how He watches over us, how His presence is like shade in the heat of life's pressures, and how nothing, not even the hardest moments, can separate us from His plan. But now, we come to the final, most powerful truth of all. The last verse of Psalm 121 says this, "The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore." Think about that. Not just today, not just when things are good, not just when you feel worthy, now and forevermore. That means there is never a moment in your life where God is not watching over you. Never. From the second you wake up to the moment you close your eyes at night, through every success, every failure, every heartbreak, every breakthrough, He is there. And this is where we need to stop and ask ourselves, do we live like we believe that? Because if we did, we wouldn't be paralyzed by fear. We wouldn't hesitate to take the next step God is calling us to. We wouldn't waste time worrying about things that are out of our control, because we would know, not just hope, but know that we are covered. And yet, so many of us live like we're on our own, like we have to figure it all out by ourselves, like we have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. But Psalm 121 tells us something different. It tells us that God isn't distant. He isn't passive. He isn't watching from afar, waiting to see if we fail or succeed. He is actively watching over our lives, guiding, protecting, strengthening. But here's the thing, faith requires action. It's one thing to say, "I trust that God is watching over me." It's another thing to actually live like you believe it. So let me ask you, what would change in your life if you fully trusted that God was watching over you? What fear would you let go of? What step of faith would you finally take? What burden would you stop carrying alone? Because that's the challenge. Not just to hear this message and nod along, but to apply it. To wake up every morning and remind yourself, I am not alone. God is watching over me. To face difficulties with the confidence that no matter what happens, you are covered. Psalm 121 holds the secret to unshakable strength, and that secret is trust. Trust that God is who He says He is. Trust that He will do what He says He will do. Trust that even when you don't understand, even when life is messy, He is still in control. And now, I want to hear from you. What part of this psalm speaks to you the most? Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt God's protection in your life? Let's talk about it in the comments. Share your thoughts, your testimonies, your prayers. Because when we come together and remind each other of God's faithfulness, our faith grows stronger. And if this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because trust me, there's someone out there who feels alone right now, who feels like they have to carry everything by themselves. And this truth, it might be exactly what they need to hear. So let's walk in confidence. Let's stand in faith. Let's live like we truly believe that the God of the universe is watching over us, now and forevermore.